Yo, 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 what up? What's your thoughts on live service games?
My initial thoughts, let's just say, just answer the question, right? Initial thoughts, live service has changed the way we as gamers play games on a daily basis. And it can be either good or bad, but it's really hard to ignore the impact it had on gaming so far.
Right.
Um, I guess to elaborate on that, one of the biggest thing with me when it came to with live service, Fortnite. Oh shit. Fortnite is one of the biggest live service game that's out here now. And because of that, this game called Predecessor that I'm always playing on, it had to be shut down and remade because of Fortnite's success. Like it was called Paragon at first. I think a lot of people know this story.
Yeah.
I was hosting spaces, a while ago saying that. Um, and now it's like it came back because of the high demand,
hmm
but the fact that they even had to get shut down because of Fortnite is something that's like again, that's something that I don't think people can ignore.
Got you. Yeah, man, it's interesting, right? Because at this day and age, live service is the thing, and everybody's trying to, reach for that same kind of success that Fortnite is. And they can say that they're not competing, but you have to compete with what's the top dog in that style of game, of style of gaming. And one thing I will say is that it's a peculiar predicament just in gaming in general when you talk about, okay, well, what does that mean for games that we grew up liking? Do we see those games now starting to turn into games as a service, and how they're going to be received? Number two, what kind of practices and things are they going to entice somebody that is fully invested into Fortnite, PUBG, those type of games to be curious enough to spend money in your store and still continue to play your game? You're having to compete for mindshare, and mindshare has no boundaries on what game you're trying to get from. That's everything. And Fortnite's one of them. You have to compete with getting some of those people to start fucking with your game that you're coming out with. And I think that that's a bad thing because, for a long time, a lot of people were saying, well, the bigger AAA games are not selling. They're not selling. We're not getting the sales that we want to get. It's more money in games as a service games. Okay, as a corporation, you may think, okay, less investment with the potential of having residual income, but if you don't have that formula, you're actually taking a bigger risk because it's harder for a games as a service game to be successful, and it doesn't mean that it has to be successful on the scale of Fortnite, but enough to pay for to bring enough revenue in for it to be justifiable, right? And if you're offering something free without the barrier entry of money, maybe people just like the game and they choose not to participate in the microtransactions, or they get pushed to be like, okay, in order to further progress, like how mobile is kind of doing it, in order to further progress, you need to pay for this, and that pushes people away from the game even more. And it's like, so why not do an overcorrection just because you see some results, but maybe focus more on the game itself that you're making from a non-live service aspect, and support that game with DLC. But first and foremost, make sure that the core of the house is good, so that way when you start putting everything else on there, the foundation can support that. And I think they don't want to go through that gamble, but it's a bigger gamble to go to the games. Like, look at Warner Brothers, right? Warner Brothers is in a very peculiar situation. And if you look at what they recently said, with the lack of success when it comes to Gotham Knights and now Suicide Squads, and them standing on, we're still going this route, they're telling you that because they don't want you to realize that, yeah, they're like, well, shit, we're in a predicament to where we got to figure something out. Because if we keep going this way with our games and service games that we are making, it's not going to be sustainable. And people have to look past the corporate speak and look at what the quarterly earnings are presenting, because that's where we're going to actually see the actual results of the decisions that they choose to make. And
I
right now,
I agree with
live
you.
service ain't it. You know what I mean?
I,
For
I
Warner Brothers, particularly.
I agree with you. I don't think Suicide because Suicide Squad was live service. I don't think that's the main reason why it failed though. I'm gonna be real with you.
Okay. Okay. What do you think? What do you? Because somebody had made a really cool idea, and they said, what if it was Batman focused, and Batman was going out to go after the Suicide Squad and get rid and kill them? Would that be
Honestly,
a better pitch? And I was like,
that should
man,
have been the
honestly,
game.
yeah, that should have been it. But they chose to do the exact opposite. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, like, to me, it's almost like everybody that are fan of the Arkham series have been asking, and I know these people have been seeing it at these corporations. This is what we want. But instead of focusing that energy on what the consumers want, that way you know they're willing to buy it and invest in it. They do the opposite because they know that the cost to make that, they don't want to have that upfront cost. They want to alleviate that upfront cost and make something that is a lot less to invest in, but can reap the benefits of residual income. And in order to do that, you still got to have your shit together. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
it's like, to me, it's more of a shareholder corporation problem. And it trickles down to us as a consumers on getting games that we don't want or we're not really excited to get. And it's like, I think we're going to have to go through these growing pains and these tests for these corporations to do, to realize not every one of them is going to be successful, for them to have an auto correction of more balance, where there may be some games as a service games that still come out, but maybe they'll start focusing more on the IP and what they design, instead of let's just try to find an easy route to make more money.
Now let me ask
Which,
you.
yeah, go ahead.
I want to ask you. Do you what you just said? Do you think that that's what they should have done in the first place,
Um,
as far as
and
focus
folk,
on the IP and
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, for example, right? I guarantee you, if there was a studio out there right now that had the opportunity to make a Homelander game, like The Boys, not even a Homelander game specifically, The Boys, knowing how gory and shit that is, and let's say they went against the grain of what we're accustomed to seeing when it comes to heroes and stuff like that, and they portray them as they would as their story is written, and they, let's say they have the quality of what shit, the one that made Hogwarts Legacy did, right? And they
Mhm.
come out with that exceeding expectation, I guarantee that shit will be a hit. Because right now we're at a situation where it's a lot of conformity. Where I'm not a Spider-Man fan, but listen to people that are, and listen to what the comics are portraying Spider-Man. This ain't Spider-Man, brother. This is PG. You know what I mean? And I think one of the things is like the reason why GTA is able to get away with so much is because they're not worried about it. They're not worried about the outside perceptions of those that probably won't even play the game anyway. They want to make what they want to make, and they're going to put what they want to put in there, and they're not going to try to appease an audience because somebody may think it's too vulgar or too gory. They ain't worried about that shit, as they shouldn't be, and that's why they're able to get away with making one game for 3 generations, and people still be hella hyped and supported. And now the hype is even bigger for the next GTA. And I
Facts.
think more corporations need to do that, man. It's kind of like Call of Duty is a perfect example. Call of Duty's been rated M for years. But look what majority of these people are. These are kids that shouldn't be playing it,
True.
right?
So let me
So no,
let me
go
ask you
ahead.
before we go on Call of Duty though, because you had hit it
Okay,
with Spider-Man. We might as well get into that.
okay,
Were you
okay.
talking about Spider-Man 2 specifically when you said about like this you said it wasn't
Um,
PG or it is
no,
PG?
no, just Spider-Man in general. Like, so, being in these spaces, man, I've talked to people that are huge Spider-Man fans. I don't know enough about the. I personally don't like it. I never liked Spider-Man,
Hmm.
but when they talk about them in the how Spider-Man was presented in the comics and the abilities that he has, right? Those are not. That's not being reflected in these games. You're getting a part of what his capability is, not what he truly is about, right? And I've had people say, well, there's a reason for that. Okay, that's fine. But isn't the whole point of you liking Spider Man is because you grew up with him being the way that the author wanted him to be, right? And yeah, you may have dabbled in the games because you became a fan of it, but you can't ignore who he is and and what he is in the comics, and then turn around and say, "Well, it's still Spider Man." Yeah, it's Spider Man, but I want to see Spider Man as I remember him being and why I became a fan, not what the corporations are wanting him to be to try to appease to a bigger audience. You
But
see what I'm saying?
what and I know you already said that you're not a fan of Spider-Man. But what was it about the games that don't relate to how he is in the comics that other
So
people are saying?
I remember specifically leading up to Spider Man 2. There were people. I asked the question. I said, so I voiced my opinion about why I don't like Spider Man.
Uh-huh.
And they said, "Have you read the comics?" And I said, "No, I have not." I said, "I'm not a Spider-Man fan, so I no, I haven't read the comics." And so they go down a list of like how badass he is, and I said, "Well, then why is he not being portrayed in that way in the games? Because what you're
Okay.
telling me he's being portrayed in the comics, just because you like the game, you know damn well that's not who he's being when you play these games.
Right. Okay.
So why are we having this stark difference between you explaining me what Spider-Man truly is and who he is and what he's capable of, but we never see that in the games themselves.
Okay. And what and just so we can have context, like no judgment zone. It doesn't matter what you like or don't like.
Right, right.
What don't you like about Spider-Man? Why you don't like the character?
Just this persona, man. Like it's a grown ass man in a onesie shooting webs out of his wrist. There's nothing cool about that to me. Like to be straight up, there's nothing cool. To be honest with you, bro, I didn't grow up with this DC Marvel stuff, man. I was out hunting and playing sports, man. I honestly didn't even have friends that really gave a crap about it, right? It
Uh-huh.
wasn't until I got older, and stuff like that, where curiosity started, like, okay, let me see what these are about. Like, I knew what Batman was, and I would watch the movies and stuff, but to really know what they are and what they're about, man, I didn't. I didn't do that. So when the boys came out, I said, when I hear a hero and having all these powers, this is how I expect him to be. He has some grittiness to him, right? Not this, oh, I'm gonna shoot webs and catch you in my webs. Like I think of Charlotte's Web when I see Spider-Man, bro. Not Spider-Man. I think of Charlotte's Web. Like the concept to me was kind of cheesy. That's it for me.
I
You know
got
what I
you.
mean?
Okay. Okay. I always had this idea that, and I guess to some degree we see it, but a lot of times we don't. Most of the times we don't see it to where these characters, comics, even let's say video games, Spider-Man 1 and 2, they should
Uh
grow up
huh.
with the times, with the people, right? So like I know that these businesses they have a target audience. Spider-Man is catered towards, and comics in general, but Spider-Man specifically is catered toward a younger or audience. Since
Right.
we
Right.
do have, a lot of us that play, PlayStations and Xbox, especially, Xbox, I think got a higher stat of older people on it, but a lot of people on these consoles, they are older people now. Like we grew up with these consoles. Like I literally grew up with the PlayStation 1, right? So
Uh huh.
since we have grown in age, even since Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, people that play Spider-Man 1 have grown up in age. Why don't the game grow up as well? Like they already introducing Carnage. I guess
Right.
it's spoiler, but not spoiler. Everybody been see if you're on Twitter, you already know that Carnage is being introduced into the to the Marvel Spider-Man universe, right on the games.
Uh huh.
So since it is like I don't want to see a Spider-Man 3 and it's dumbed down. Miles is going to college, right? He's done. He graduated high school, or he's about to be done with high school, right? So
Right.
maybe that he can graduate in the third game. We can actually see it, but he's growing up. He's going to college. We got Carnage coming into the mix. We already didn't have Venom. Why not make it a damn near M-rated game? If it don't need to be M-rated, but at least have the things to where it's almost like it's an M-rated game. There's a lot you can do with, I guess, teen games or whatnot, just like PG-13. But still, make it more mature. Make it a little bit grown up. He's a serial killer. I don't think anybody wants to see uh, a a lighthearted Carnage. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right, exactly. And that you speaking 100% facts. That's why I'm curious to see how 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 they do X-Men, right?
I am too.
Because it's
Exactly.
like, is the consequence of perception allowing you to limit what X-Men is and what we know he is? So therefore, you create a game that is more subtle, right, and make him more appeasable to a younger audience. When we have plenty of examples of games that people will buy for their kids, even though they're not old enough, because ultimately it's up to the parents anyway. And if the parents don't have a problem with them playing these games, like Call of Duty and other games, then I don't see why you're worried about the sales. Because it's going to be a lot of kids that's going to be on GTA that shouldn't be on GTA.
Yep.
So I just find it really odd that it is dictated by the appeal of a younger audience when that younger audience is playing shit that they shouldn't be playing based off of that kind of mindset. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Now I will
So,
I will be surprised if X-Men isn't rated M because Wolverine is already well actually I don't matter of fact I don't even think it's confirmed. I don't think it's confirmed as rated M, but they did say that it's gonna be gory, right? They did say it's gonna be matured. So I mean rated M
right.
it stands for mature a matured audience. Most likely 9 times out of 10 it's going to be rated M because of what the director said. I believe the director said those things. So
Uh huh.
if Wolverine is rated mature, I would be surprised if X-Men isn't rated mature. And I feel like that's the right direction we should go in. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. And
Still
you know
though,
what's
I still
interesting?
agree with you, like
Okay.
especially with the Spider-Man stuff. But you
Yeah.
good?
Yeah. It's kind of like Halo, right? Like, I want Halo to be gory like it is. Like, I don't want it to be what it is now, where you don't even see really blood and shit. Like, my thing is, Suicide Squad's one thing that I will give it credit for that it did well, right? Was they didn't try to minimize the goriness of it in a sense, right? There was parts on there where you're like, oh shit. And I'm early on in the game. I ain't even finished the game. My thing is, if X-Men comes out and you can mutilate them and chop off body parts, I want to see that blood. I don't want to see little droplets because we know that that kind of cut ain't going to just have little droplets. I want to see that shit spewing out. I want to see the bone. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like, that needs to be in there. If you cut them, right, and you don't cut their arm off, but you cut them, I want to see that blood continue to bleed while you fighting them. Like, I want to see that shit. That is shit that needs to happen. You know, but are we going to get that, right? I think that just as gamers, we just want the right representation of what that character is portrayed to be in. And if you're someone that's deep in that lore and you really know the capabilities of that superhero and what they've done in these comics, to see it in a lighter light and presentation, I would have a problem with that, right? Like, I don't want the boys to come out with they work out a deal to create the boys and it's not gory like it is in the shows. I wouldn't want that. I would be upset. Like, I wouldn't like that because we can't go off of, well, we want kids to be able to play it. The parents don't care at this point because they buying them Call of Duty and other shit like that. Like, they don't care. If the kids want it, the parents will buy it. It's a very small subsection that really worries about it to that extent to where it would hurt your bottom line. I don't think it's enough out there that would say, "Oh no, Timmy, it's too gory. We're not going to get you." I don't think it's enough of them out there to really sway you that much to where you cut down on a lot of stuff.
I agree. I definitely agree. I know for a fact I was
You know?
out there in the midnight releases with Call of Duty
Yeah.
with grown ass men. you know, sweaty, the sweats. I was out there with the grown sweats. And my mama, you know,
Facts.
she ain't really, as long as she dropped me, not dropped me off, but as long as she, well, I got a GameStop by my childhood home, so I did walk once or twice. After
Right.
after her, me convincing her like, hey, look, I know I'm in the hood, but still, I'm finna be around a whole bunch of nerds. So it's like this is probably the least
Right.
amount of worry that you ever have to worry about me going. Hey, no, nothing enough about me. More to the story. I was out there, right? I was out there midnight
Right.
release. Um, in fact, I ain't gonna lie. You know what's crazy? I don't think that I got ID'd anything too during the midnight releases one time. Cause I remember I was 16 and I just went and bought the game. They didn't
Hmm.
I but they was, you know how the midnight releases go, they was busy, a lot of people coming in, sometimes hosting pizza parties, they had to do all this stuff. So I didn't
Yep.
even get ID'd. I'm sorry if I'm tricking on GameStop, but hey, GameStop is 2024 GameStop now, so forget it. Uh
If you had the receipt, they didn't care what age you was. You just
man,
show that receipt and get your copy.
man. But yeah, like I do agree. Now, so Call of Duty is one of the biggest live service, if not the. We got Fortnite stuff too, and then we got Sea of Thieves out there too. Call of Duty is one of the biggest
Hmm.
live service games out there, and they started
Right.
from regular multiplayer, regular. They started from regular single player to added multiplayer to live service. They elevated to the point where they at now.
Right.
I think the biggest
Yep.
thing as far as what's the reason why live service games fail in the past and why they are still some of them are still failing now is because of one word, and that's greed.
Yeah. That's 100% facts. That's the best way to put it right there. That literally sums up why we're in this situation that we're in with hesitancy of gas games and why it has such a negative connotation when you say that, right? The minute somebody says a game is going to be a gas game, people are like, oh shit, here we go again,
Yeah, and
right?
for right reasons.
And yeah, because greed has hurt the perception of when we hear gas, it being in a good light. And you couldn't have said it any better. You know what I mean? Like that's it. And it's like I would much rather for them to build a game, develop because it's not it's taking forever to develop these games anyway. Do what's necessary. Don't make no corners. Don't cut no corners. Make sure you have a good beginning of the game. So when I play that game, like I did with Red Dead Redemption, the campaign alone was enough to keep me enticed. Whether I finished the story and didn't do any of the side missions, I knew I had something to go back to, and it gave you enough time to come out with DLC if you wanted to. I want games to start doing that and get their revenue based off of the content and the DLCs and support those games that way than to come out with a multiplayer aspect knowing that you're less likely to be successful in that because there's too many big games that have been established for so long that people are not going to bat an eye at another game no matter how good it could be. Like the
Facts.
finals, for example. The finals, there's a lot of people that like it, right? There's a lot of people that like it. But at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that it's still not successful. And at any given moment, that game could die off
Facts.
because there's so many people that don't care. They like, well, I've been in PUBG for 5 years. I done got this much money into it. Same with Fortnite. Why am I going to go there? This is it. I got all the characters. I'm not about to abandon all this money I put into this game to go try to play another live service game and give them more money. No.
You know, World of Warcraft, technically speaking, is a live service game,
Yep,
and
sure is.
World of Warcraft been around for freaking ages. It feels like
Hmm.
a lot of people that have played, a lot of people are still playing that game too, as if they just started playing that game. So when you talking about mind share, and I know that's something. This is not a topic that no one that's new to us, right? We know we've been talking about live service games. We've been talking about the idea of spreading mind share or limiting the mind share between all these different games.
Right.
A lot of people are still playing World of Warcraft, And that's another reason why I specifically say that live service to me is not anything new. It's a new way of defining it because of it's there are new aspects and new methods of how these developers and publishers are designing live service, but live service in and of itself
Right.
isn't new in gaming, in my opinion.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. That's facts.
I forgot the reason why I even got to. Oh, so last one of the first when I was first hosting spaces about live service, right? We were talking about the definitions and everything of what makes a live service game. And I think, we kind of passed that, right? Everybody pretty much know what a live service game is. But
Uh
upon
huh.
doing research again, so we can get like more of a defined look on it, I stumbled upon something. So the definition I saw from articles that because live servers don't have it don't have a standard definition, but the standard definition
Right.
that I got from live service when I was looking at articles, and the main thing that everybody was talking about was was a continuous revenue, pretty much, right?
Yep.
You had to it had to be charged for it, and it had to be continuous, which means more than once or twice. I forget what it is. I think it's continuous just means more than once. I think it was a
Right.
misconception that people were saying, oh, it got to be seasons, right? It got to be every 3 months something got to be new into it. Not necessarily. That's how Fortnite is doing it. That's how Call of Duty is doing it. But just because them two are doing it, don't mean that that's how live service is done. Um,
Right.
if some of this is I'm sorry, I think I just thought of something else. It has to be supported continuously. So,
Right.
for example, um, let's say DC Universe Online, right? That's a common. We know that's a live service game, but DC Universe Online don't come out with updates for like 6 months to almost a year sometimes. You know what I'm saying? So even though they I guess you can call them seasons, their seasons don't come out as much as Call of Duty or Fortnite. So I guess we can throw that misconception, I guess, of it got to be every couple weeks, months that game got to be updated. As long as the developers are still supporting it,
Right.
they haven't moved on to another game, or they haven't cut off the servers or anything like that. They can move on to another game, but as long as they're still supporting this game and they are charging you for things, it's live service.
Right.
So
Right.
that's a DC Universe example. But upon stumbling upon the more research, I saw, and it was only one article. So take this with a grain of salt, because I only saw one article say this out of all the articles I read. But one article
Hmm.
stated that live service and games as a service aren't necessarily the same thing. So what the article was saying was that the general term is games as a service, and
Okay.
live service is a type of games as a service where I forget, it was like it was like three other brackets. One of the brackets was live service. The other bracket was subscription services.
Okay.
That's a games as a service. That's a type of games as a service, and it actually made, I never thought of it like that, but it makes sense in my eyes,
Hmm.
after looking at it. Games as a service is the definition that I say. It has to be continuous revenue model, and then subscription service is one type of games as a service, or a way to modify games as a service, monetize games as a service. Live service is another way to monetize games as a service. So in my eyes, and I know I don't want to confuse anybody, and I don't want to just go on this tangent. But now, after reading that article, I kind of changed my tune on, and you can see online, people aren't just saying games as a service no more, right? When they talk about a specific game, and if it's like the Fortnite or the Call of Duty model, they call it live service, right? So I'm kind of changing my
Right.
tune now as far as how I'm describing it. Um, Games as a service, I'm gonna be real with you. Now, after looking at that definition and how that article described the things, games as a service
Mhm.
is very tricky, and I think the problem comes in with games as a service is the greed in which which these publishers are trying to monetize the subscription services. One, right, the Game Pass, the PS Plus, and how they're trying to monetize the live service to where I'm gonna be real with you. I don't think these people got their shit together, like you said earlier.
Right. Yeah.
I know there was a lot that I
That's
said.
no. That's facts, and that goes to Destiny. Look at Destiny, right? The reason why Destiny's downfall is because the seasons or the content that they came out with wasn't quite up to standard from what they made initially. There was a drop off in the quality of content.
Agreed.
And you can't have a drop off when you're peaking because there's an expectation from these fans. That's why they were drawn to your game to begin with. And then you think you have room to falter and expect people to stick around like that. It don't work like that. You can only try to supersede what you've done for people to like your game, or at least maintain the standard that you have set that caused people to gravitate to your game in a huge number. But you cannot have a downfall. That is part of the responsibilities of a live service game or a gas game. Those fundamentals are universal between the two. And in order to continue to have that longevity of success, you have to continue. That's why Fortnite has cracked the code. And if you notice, they've got that shit locked down to where it hinders games as a service and gas games from being compelling enough for people to invest the money that they are charging for these items or this content. And they have to get that revenue somewhere. That's the whole reason why they developed it. And I think that is up to the developers, not to us, and not push back on us because we choose not to uh, purchase the content that you provided if it's lesser than what you've given us before. But you're charging the same price or going up in price for that matter. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
You can't charge more but do less and expect us to keep buying it. Like that's one of the biggest downfalls with Halo. And I got 33 days in that, damn near 34 days in that shit. But the reason why it wasn't successful is because it was too incomplete upon release, and they thought they could get caught up enough to be able to come out with seasons regularly, and they couldn't meet their own quota, right? And then when they started releasing these seasons, the content in those seasons only jumped for a short period of time, and then it went back to what it was before. They couldn't keep growing. And, you know, I personally feel that a lot of it comes down to them not planning enough, and it's within the studio. And you can't get mad because it wasn't successful, and so your 10-year plan is now out the window, and you've had to move on. That's on you. You kind of disrespected us as a consumers to act like giving us less than what you've even done in the past is okay, and we would just look past it like, oh well, it's in Game Pass, so it's free. I don't have to have Xbox Live to play. No, that ain't how it works. It's still our money at the end of the day, and we work for our money. We want what we get. We want what we feel like is justifiable for that price. You get us once, but gamers have become more aware and more fickle. That it's likely that you're not going to get them a second time.
Hmm.
And that's why you're starting to see a lot of these games that have potential die off. And it's because internal things and shareholders may be pushing for them to bring out shit that they should not be bringing out unless it has more stuff. Modern Warfare 3, people complain about that as being a DLC, and I said, okay, fair enough. But if you think this was bad, you should have seen what the initial plan was. All your ass was going to get was maps, and they were going to pay you. You're going to charge you $70 for it. That was it. Wasn't
Man,
no campaign, and wasn't no separate adaptation to the multiplayer. It was literally just maps that was supposed to go into Modern Warfare 2,
that had me so pissed
and
off.
it was supposed to last them. Yeah, and that was supposed to last them 2 years. But you see how they abandoned ship real quick with that. And so they had 6 months to come out with a campaign. Six to add a campaign to it. But if you notice, you see how rushed they were because if you look at the game, the guns for Modern Warfare 2, there's really not that many of them. That's why they pushed over the Modern Warfare 2 weapons into Modern Warfare 3 because they didn't have enough time to make more weapons. And if you look at the seasons that came out, there really hasn't been much as far as guns go, different guns in these seasons. It hasn't. So, you know, you can't be mad that people have their gripes about it and stuff, and they say what they say, and then turn around and be like Bonnie Ross and say, "Well, the Halo fans are the detriment to the success of the game." And it's like, wait a minute. If it wasn't for the Halo fans, Halo wouldn't be what it was.
Right.
So to say that we don't know what's best for the game when we're the ones that's actually giving you the money, that's crazy. That's like you go into a car dealership and you say, "Man, I want this Mustang, but I want it to be white with black wheels, tinted windows. I want a black spoiler on it. You know, I want this package on it." And then they say, "Okay, all right, well that's going to be $45,000." And you give them that $45,000 to then find out that the shit that you wanted, not all of it's there. And they say, "Well, it's white.
Oh no, that's
It's a
bogus.
white Mustang with black wheels." But what about the infotainment system? What about the satellite radio? What about the navigation system? Where's all that shit that I asked for?
So let me ask you this.
Oh, well, go
Let
ahead,
me
go
ask you
ahead.
this. So what's the solution, right? And um, let me ask you, what would be a solution how everybody can get what they want? These businesses can make their money, and we can get better games in this live service or games as a service. Now, fuck it. Let's stick with live service. How can a business be profitable and we get what we want in this live service space?
Brother, what I'm about to say, it ain't enough people that will be willing to do it, but I'll tell you what it takes.
What's up?
It takes motherfuckers to stand on business, no matter how excited you are about a game, not to buy it. And it's going to cause them to say, "Okay, what the fuck?" Well, we voiced our opinions on what we want. We have an expectation. You don't meet that expectation, you don't get my money. Because right now, you know, one of the biggest downfalls to a lot of these games coming out unfinished more now than ever before is on the fly updates. It's created a complacency within the gaming industry and the development industry to be like, "Oh, we'll do a day one patch that's 15 gigabytes, and that'll fix a lot of these things. It may not fix everything, but we can work on those as time goes on. But they'll give us our they'll bitch and complain, but guess what? We still got their money." And me thinking and feeling that way of them saying they'll bitch and complain, but I still got your money type shit, it rubs me off the wrong way. To it's like, fuck it, I just ain't giving you my money until you give me what I expected and what you promised. You know what I mean?
Facts.
Because some of these expectations ain't based off the consumers that want it. Some of these expectations are based off of what the studios have set, and they just ain't meeting them. You see what I'm saying? A
Mhm.
lot of it is the downfalls of themselves promising so much, but not able to deliver on it. So as consumers, it's not our fault that these games failed. It's the developers and what they said they were going to give us and didn't do it is why these games fail. You know, and if you notice, game development, and I know it's some cool developers in there. I've been in places where some of them, you know, have came in and spoke, and they truly have a love and passion for the art itself. And it sucks that they get lumped in with those that are not up to that same kind of mindset. However, we can't ignore that shareholders have a big influence on it as well, to where it really doesn't fall on the developers as a whole in its totality. But you are a representation of the company that you work for. And maybe some of these developers need to be more outspoken, but understanding that, yeah, it's messing with the money. That's why a lot of them are not. Because even though they don't like the direction it's going, they got to still put food on the table. They still got to pay bills. And I get that's why they're not near as outspoken. But maybe it takes a group of people to be able to do that. And maybe unionization will also help with that as well, to where these shareholders don't have that big of an influence on deadlines and expectations because they don't understand what it takes and how long it takes to make this game to be successful. They just want to make the money the quickest and the fastest way possible. They ain't trying to hear nothing else but that.
Facts.
And they want to see that bank account growing. So, but honestly, I think it takes a large majority of the gaming community as consumers to stand on business and allow Digital Foundry to do what they do, even though I have my qualms about them as well, and point out the problems that this game may have. And if they have problems with it to where it's unacceptable, like a Redfall or something like that, or it's not the game that you wanted, that you've been expecting from that studio, don't buy it. Don't buy it.
I,
And when you hurt them that way, it's a faster result in reaction. And it may have some dry spells, brother. It may have some dry spells. I ain't gonna sit here and lie. It ain't gonna be easy. But I think that's the extreme that we would need to go in order for things to start shaping into the right direction for gas games and single player games to be successful and people be willing to spend money on both. Because GTA is a perfect example. People are willing to pay as long as you've established a trust within that consumer.
facts. So I'm gonna piggyback on you because I'll piggyback on that. Pause. I agree with that. Right. I agree with that, and I'm gonna add on to it. So if that's what the consumers should do, I think for the business, I'm just going ahead and say it. They need to know what product they have, and I say that
Right.
from as a gamer and as a
Hey, but I'm listening. I'm about to order some food real quick, but I'm listening.
gotcha. Okay. I say that as a gamer, and I say that as a person that's worked in marketing. That worked for not directly. Oh yeah, I did work for Marvel. So I was a third party. Yeah, I know that. I know the third party is something that's like I don't know a curse saying in the gaming community right now. But uh, these businesses need to know what kind of product they have. Not everything is gonna be Fortnite, like people mentioned before, and not everything should be Fortnite. Not everyone should expect every product they have should be in Fortnite. Spider-Man is an example of an established IP that is going to make buku bucks of money, right? No matter, even if the game is bad, so to speak, it's gonna make money because it's Spider-Man. You businesses should not they shouldn't expect to make Spider-Man type money with something, let's say, on the lines of The Legend of Zorro, right? There's a whole generation that probably don't even know what The Legend of Zorro is. And not not to get on The Legend of Zorro, or let's just say, I don't know, even Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? Now that's the money maker right there, especially if you make it good. But let's call a spade a spade. Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I know I'm probably gonna get look. That's one of my beloved shows, one of my beloved IPs. Growing up, is probably one of my it's probably my favorite show of all time, besides Static Shock. They shouldn't expect to make Spider-Man type money with Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, if it does, cool. Oh well, that's even better. But the expectation, businesses need to know what kind of product they have. I'm saying that as far as someone who worked in marketing, not I'm not talking about any of my position, anybody I worked with, none of that. I'm talking specifically of these movie studios like Marvel, who makes games as well, working with the likes of say DC, right? Why would you again? Why would you expect something? Let's say a movie, right? Let's say a movie like what's that movie called? Eternals. Why would you expect Eternals to make what Spider-Man No Way Home does? Not saying that they did. I'm not saying they did. Most likely they didn't, but still, that's a common problem that I am seeing from the business practices of these live service games. They are trying to catch the Fort, like a lot of people already said. I'm echoing that part. They are trying to catch that Fortnite money when you don't need to be trying to catch that Fortnite money. A solution, the main solution, know your product, right? That I'm saying as far as the business wise. We already talked about the consumer wise, but business wise, they need to know their product and then leverage what they
Yep.
have. If you have let's say go to a live service game, the IP that you have and what the product that you make from that IP. For example, let's say I don't know what's a live service, what's not established live service IP. What's a game that's
A
coming out?
non-established live service IP.
So like what's some rumors of or some games that we know that's coming out that's going to be matter of fact, let's do Warner Brothers, right? Because Warner Brothers, I think they said that they was trying to do more live service games. Let's say if they do a Suicide
Right,
Squad
right.
2, right? Scratch everything that happened with the first Suicide Squad. In fact, actually, you can don't even scratch that out. Put it in. Everything that happened with Suicide Squad, from the movies, from the comics to the games that they put out. Let's say they make a Suicide Squad 2. Why would you? The business should not. Warner Brothers should not focus on trying to. If they want to make a live service, they shouldn't try to make it to where they want the consumer spending all their time into it 24/7. So they making a whole bunch of updates for it 24/7. If you know you got Suicide Squad, which is honestly a damaged IP at this point, we didn't have the first movie that came out, and we got this game that damaged the IP. If you know that as a business, but you still want to have a continuing web revenue stream, make it a different type of continuing revenue. Don't make it seasons. You can continue to support the game, but make it to where, let's say, a Suicide Squad 2, right? Most likely they ain't gonna make a Suicide Squad 2, but let's just say if they do, right? Uh, I don't know. Maybe an idea can be, hey, we got 3 seasons, right? Since we already, just saying something that we already know about, right? That we are used to. 3 seasons, but those 3 seasons are gonna be expanded to the next game. So you got a season coming out in one year. You got a season coming out in the next 2 or 3 years. You got another season coming out in the next 3 or 4 years. Now, of course, you're gonna have to. The way you're monetizing that is different. So you're gonna have to make the game a little bit different, right? You can't have it to where you having a whole bunch of skins. You trying to program a whole bunch of skins and drip feeding us and everything like that. It got to be different. I'm not a game developer, so that's why I can't really give them specific examples. But look at Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 is a live service game that's flourishing right now, and they are doing different things than the rest of the live service games are doing now. One, you got to pay for $40, $40. It's not free to play. So they got a lot of their money up front. Two, they're drip feeding us content. I guess you can say it has seasons, but it really don't have seasons. They are just, hey, look, once we ready with something, we finna put it out. Hey, look, today we got flying bugs. Next 2 days or let's say today we got the mechs. Next week or next week and a half, hey, we coming out with flying bugs now. 2 or 3 days after that, we got a whole another premium war bond. It's not is it, it, they're not promising us anything besides are we going to have more factions into it? They didn't tell us how many factions are going to be coming. They didn't tell us when the factions are going to be coming. They probably don't even know when the factions are going to be coming. But it's flourishing right now because it's a good game. One is a good game, and two, they're not trying to follow in the steps of Fortnite. They're not trying to follow in the steps of Call of Duty. Still a live service game. It's a live service game just like Fortnite and Call of Duty, but the method in which they are doing it is completely different. And I think that's because again they knew the IP. I didn't play the first Helldivers, but from what I hear people say, it was a very good game. But yet no one knew about it. A lot of people did not know about it, and the developers it seemed like they knew that. So this flourishing aspect of this flourishing revenue wasn't planned, but it's happening because they knew what product they had, and they're not necessarily. Of course, they're competing with Fortnite because it's live service. It's a live service third person shooter. Like you call a spade a spade. Of course, they're gonna have to compete with Fortnite, but they are not consciously competing. Just like a NBA player playing in the game. Of course, you're competing with the other team, but you're not trying to be like the other team. You doing what you doing. You don't see Steph Curry out there trying to play like LeBron James. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna get out
Exactly.
the sports analogy because I don't want to stretch myself too thin into a different territory. But still, but yeah, that's my thing. The consumers,
Yeah, you
yes,
speaking facts.
yeah,
That's
mhm,
it comes and if you think about it, look at the gameplay loop of some of these live service games that do come out that fail. Suicide Squad's biggest problem is the gameplay loop. It's very anemic. Helldivers get you because of the environmental destruction, the impact of the guns, the seeing of the enemies starting to degrade. You know, it's a lot of attention to detail on that aspect is why they're able to get away with it and build momentum. And they did it a smart way where that development was budgeted and they made the most out of the budget they had to receive the biggest benefit.
exactly.
Now everything else is icing on the cake. It's icing on the cake. They've made their money and then some just off of the purchases alone. So when they start going in there and charging different things within that store, that's just to make the next game even that much better or start another project that they have in mind that may be able to do it. But they utilize the resources and the money that they were allotted to make this game. They utilized it in as efficient of a way as possible.
So I feel like adults at this point in age who then work the job, some of us got kids, some of us took business classes. I think all of us know at a certain point that it doesn't matter how much. Let's say in this economy we in right now, one of the biggest advices is that people have told other people or that people are doing for income is to have different revenue streams. You know what I'm saying, to pay their bills and stuff like that, and a whole bunch of stuff, right? Um, but yeah, that's the game plan now, right? Have a couple hustles, have a couple of different revenue streams. That way you can do what you need to do and do what you want to do. It's to a point where it don't matter how much you are making, but it's how you are making that money. More to the story, sometimes it don't matter how much they are making. It's just the fact that they are making money. If live service, the idea of live service is to continue, is to have a continuous revenue stream. Of course, look at the budget. Don't over budget. Don't you know? There's a middle ground to everything. But still, if it's a continuing revenue stream, that should have a different expectation than if something was sold at for one-time cost, right? And we can also elaborate on that to where it can be a hybrid, like how Helldivers 2 have it. Helldivers 2, you got to pay for it initially to get into the game, but you could also pay for super credits, so that way the continuing revenue stream can emerge. Some games are free to play where you don't have to put no type of money into it to get into the game, to play the base game, anything like that. But the continuing revenue stream comes in with, upgrades and, cosmetics, a whole bunch of other stuff. Those two types of business, well, that plus the let's just say if you just paying a game upfront, mostly single player games do this where you like pay a $67 fee, and then you got the whole game. All those three types of revenue streams should be handled differently and can be used to the advantage. For example, Suicide Squad, because of the IP, I think they feel as though they could have charged, money, full-fledged money for the game, 60, $70 RSVP, and also have the continued revenue stream. But that idea failed, and maybe they should have looked at it to where it was a different revenue stream. With Suicide Squad, I'm gonna be real. Gameplay is one big thing. Gameplay was they need to. I didn't play the game, so I can't really talk about as much on it. I can really talk about the business part of it. But gameplay wise, they probably should change how the game played. The reason why I didn't buy the game was because it don't look like the Suicide Squad to me. I can play Spider-Man and have a better experience than what it seems like I could be having on Suicide Squad. I don't want to be jumping around in this world like I'm Spider-Man with the Suicide Squad. I'm not interested in that. I want to play. I will have liked the Suicide Squad to play a little bit. If you was gonna make it a first person or a third person, at least make it how Helldivers 2 is. Make it a little bit realistic. Make it, of course, bloody and everything, but make it grounded. I don't want to be. They literally did the opposite of what I wanted, and I think a lot of other people wanted the same thing because it's the Suicide Squad. Why are they jumping around like they Spider Man? But that was the main reason why I didn't buy the game. So again, know your IP. Like if these studios, if you have an IP like Suicide Squad, make a game like Suicide Squad, because obviously there's an audience for people for Suicide Squad. They could have did another IP with a bigger audience, but still, if there's an audience for Suicide Squad, cater to that audience. But they didn't. On top of that, making a revenue stream that was not going to work for that game, or depend on a revenue stream that was not going to give them benefit. My life mission isn't to like persuade people into live service. Don't get me wrong. Like I play different games here and there. I play live service games. I play single player games. I play regular multiplayer games that aren't live service. This can go right. It can go right for both the business and the consumers. We can have great live service games like the Helldivers 2, right? Like a Fortnite, like a Call of Duty, but not to that extent. We can have great times, you know, with these games. I didn't even talk about the Spider-Man League. Okay, we can end on that actually. So, but we can have great times with these types of games like we're doing with Helldivers 2. I'm gonna be real with y'all. Helldivers 2 is a great time. I have not been able to play with practically everybody that I have ever played a game with, damn near my lifetime, or the people that's just not even going to that exaggeration, right? Everybody on my friends list is playing Helldivers 2. I have squatted up with at least everybody on my friends list that I actually play games with, or I have played a game with. I have squatted up with them at least one time. It even got to the point where people are starting to meet people. Like, and I'm talking about my personal life. I know it's probably going into other people's personal lives too, right? Like other people probably have the same experience. But I have squatted up people from I knew from grammar school to high school. I squatted up people that co-workers. I squatted up with people a lot and my from my own personal life because of Helldivers 2. And I don't think that has ever happened before in my entire I know it hasn't ever happened before in my entire life. And if it's happening for me, I know that it's happening for other people to where it's just Helldivers 2 has brought together a lot of people just in general. We've been fighting for democracy, we've been squadding up for liberty, and been having a fantastic time with it. And it's a live service game. Maybe you can make the argument with Call of Duty, maybe make the argument with Fortnite, but I guess more so with Fortnite because not everybody gonna be on Call of Duty. But still, Fortnite probably has done that, but not for me. There can be a good side to this live service if the two things that we listed, me and Immortal already listed earlier, boycotting pretty much the consumer, on the consumer side, we got to boycott some of this stuff. Um, unify, right? Just like how we've been on Helldivers 2, we can do that when it comes to our purchases with these games. And these businesses need to know what kind of product they have and budget and develop specifically for what they need to do with the product that they have. So we have the Spider-Man leak, Marvel Spider-Man leak, and since we've been talking and everything. I guess I can finish with this really quick. Immortal, if you are back, okay, he actually just left, but I can just finish it with this real quick. We have the Spider. Oh, matter of fact, I probably can save for tomorrow. Mm, now let me get my thoughts out. Forget it. I just get my thoughts out. I don't care if it's one person listening to me. I don't care if it's 800 people listening to me. Marvel Spider-Man, they had the leak come out the with what was it, Web of the Great Web? So it was titled The Great Web. And it looked good in my eyes. It was definitely diversive. Some people truly understood why it was canceled, and to a certain degree, I can understand why it was canceled too. But it was a canceled game that was intended. It looked like it was intended. I don't want to call it a live service. It looked like it was intended to be attached to Marvel Spider-Man 2, just the way it looked like graphic wise. Move set wise, it had the same assets as Marvel Spider-Man 2. They had the web wings from Marvel Spider-Man 2. It had the suits from Marvel Spider-Man 2. When it comes to the symbiote suits. So it looked like it was an extension of Marvel Spider-Man 2. That's what I'm saying. It looked like an extension. I don't know if it was a DLC. I don't know if it was a multiplayer attached to the game, or I don't know if it was a separate live service game, or just a separate game in general. But from the looks of it, because of how the gaming space has been, it looks like it was. It looked. Then I can't even say it. I would say we can safely assume that it was going to be a live service standalone game. I can't say that with complete confidence because again, I don't think it was. I think it was a separate, excuse me. I think it was an attached multiplayer component to um, um, Marvel Spider-Man 2. Excuse me. I think it was a standalone multiplayer component to Marvel Spider-Man 2. Almost like how Ghost of Tsushima Legends was. Ghost of Tsushima Legends came after the launch of Ghost of Tsushima, and you can go to it through the game launcher, right? You can launch Ghost of Tsushima and then go to Ghost Legends, but it was also a standalone as well. Because you can buy the standalone, you could have bought that game separately without even buying Ghost of Tsushima. So I think that's how they was gonna do exactly that. That's how they was gonna do with Marvel Spider-Man 2 in the Great Web, especially since Sony likes to with their first party studios, they like to rehash things. So for example, those base battles that I like talking about a lot. If you look at my Twitter, the base battles, the hunter bases, the warehouse bases, and Miles Morales, and the underground, or excuse me, the underground bases and Miles Morales, and the warehouse bases or fights and Marvel Spider-Man 1. All that, as you can see from those three games, they rehashed that um, arena battles, as I like to call them. They've had arena battles and um, Infamous First Light. They had arena battles in Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West. When it comes to the Nora grounds or something like that, I forgot what they was called in those. Um, they had them in a lot of different Sony first party games. They just called them something different. So with that, uh, I want to say with that knowledge, right? Most likely they was going to do the same thing with the Great Whip as they did with Ghost of Tsushima Legends. So uh, that's what I think it was. I believe that it was canceled though because of a couple reasons. And as a business, I guess the cons probably outweighed the pros. I don't think that we are never going to see that. I really don't believe that. I do believe, especially now they was leaked and they got feedback from that. But I do believe that it was canceled. One, because Insomniac is working on too much. Sony has spread them too thin, and I don't have confirmation from that, but just from what all the leaks that we got, Sony has spread them too thin to where they are. Insomniac has Wolverine they're developing, X-Men, another Ratchet and Clank game, Spider-Man 3, and apparently a Venom game. They already came out and said when Spider-Man 2, as soon as Spider-Man 2 launched, hey, look, Venom is all dependent on the feedback that we're getting from people. Obviously, because they're working on so many freaking games, and Venom was already in Spider-Man 2. So I do believe that they was canceled because of they're working on too many games. That's the biggest umbrella. That's the biggest topic why they was canceled. Why it was canceled. But then you also got subdivisions to that, right? To where maybe I saw from, I think it was a game developer who was giving his feedback on it. Maybe the engine was not capable of running all of those Spider-Man on an online service or on online servers. So that definitely could have been another thing. Um, I do believe that they could have got it to work by improving the engine. I don't believe that they had to make a new engine. Just from me as a gamer and researching some of this stuff, I don't believe that they needed to needed to make a entirely different engine. Just having the engine to work, if that was the case. But moving on from this, I'm not a game developer. I don't want to talk too much onto that. They could Insomniac, they're spreading itself too thin. The type of game it was not suited for the technology that they have right now. And The third thing, which I see a lot of people talk about, was that Sony was trying to monetize it like a live service game and could not figure out how it would be profitable. Because again, the game plays like Spider-Man 2. It looks like Spider-Man 2, and people have we didn't get three Spider-Man games now already. They kind of playing the same. So, people's probably gonna get bored of it. I don't think that was the case. Or at least if it was the case, I don't believe that it's true. I believe that people would like this game, would play the game, and even spend money on the game, right? As a live service aspect. I don't think though that it was. I don't think that they probably should focus on live service. And if they do, I'm gonna be real with you. I think this game will be coming back. I think this. I think this game will be different, and I think that they will be working on this game to make it an even bigger game that they already envisioned. I think their ambition for the game has gone up. Do I have any evidence of this? I know I'm just talking. I'm just I'm just speculating myself. Still, I would like for them to bring the game back or improve upon the game. And it can go in different directions. Before Spider-Man 2 came out, before we ever seen any footage from Spider-Man 2, before we seen a gameplay trailer, anything, I've always said that I've wanted a multiplayer co-op aspect to the game, like Ghost of Tsushima Legends. I've always said that. And we have leaked footage of something like that, but on a grander scale because it's open world, on a grander scale that they were already working on. So if they were already working on this, if they already have the assets of Spider-Man 2, if they already have a concept, they can finish it. They probably can make it a little bit more ambitious to where it's not just, you doing hunter bases or anything like that. Maybe they do make it live service now. Maybe they do monetize it. I don't think that they do. They should do it that aspect, but maybe they can. And the last part of this, when I looked at the trailer and analyzed it, I saw that it looked like they intended on the players being able to play the villains as well, because you play as all the Spider-Man and women, right? Because Spider-Gwen is in there, and probably some other Spider people are gonna be coming. You play as the Spider people, but then they cut to the villains are loose and everything like that, title screen, and then they cut to you playing as Venom. And then after that, Peter says some stuff that kind of leads me to believe that the villains are controlled by players, by real life players. So if the villains are controlled by real life players, or at least if they had it to where yes, you were playing as the villains, the people were playing as the villains, I think that would add another aspect to the game to where you could turn it into a live service game. If they want to make it a live service game, let us play as the villains. I think people will love to rampage through the city as Doc Ock. I think people will of course love to play as Venom, Electro, Vulture, flying through the city as Vulture. They already have the web wings. Who don't want to play as Electro? You got Rhino in there. Who don't want to run around the city as Rhino? I think they should do it. I think they should focus on Spider-Man 3 in the Great Web. If they want to make it a live service game, let's play as the villains. That can be your bread and butter on how Spider-Man: The Great Web can be a live service game. But yeah, if they want to make a live service, make it let us play as the villains. That's it. That's all. If they don't let us play as the villains, make it the Ghost of Tsushima style. But yeah, that's it. Spider-Man 3, The Great Web, um, uh, Wolverine, and the X-Men. And they can even add multiplayer to the X-Men too. But that's it. Anybody watching, thank you for tuning in. Anybody that's listening, peace out.